I'm Maureen Matthews, and I just want to thank the audience. You laughed when it was funny. You were quiet when it was
Serious.
very serious, yeah. This is an opportunity now. It's a post-play discussion we would like to have. If there's any questions that people have about the play, about how it came about experiences that people shared, this is your chance to ask those questions you always wished you could ask, because as you can tell, these people are very aware of what's happening and they're very anxious to talk about it. So does anybody have a question?
First of all, I just want to say we salute all of you. It was very brave to do this. And I just wanted to ask, how did it feel bringing up these feelings initially when you started?
Yes, it was easy because we have a family-like atmosphere. We have much in common that we have established by relating to each other for a long period of time. So it's very easy to give and take with each other, as it is easy for this audience, because this shows what a community can do in working together, where you can take the people from Samuel Field Y and the people from the Alzheimer's Association. You find a common ground. That's the way we find a common ground. So it's easy for us to have an easy flow between us.
Is Alzheimer's not a progressive thing? When one mentions Alzheimer's, you think that people can't perform a function. However, there are many cases where people do very well and they still are considered Alzheimer's victims. So I assume, unless I'm wrong, that you may start with a small memory loss and you end up with a severe memory loss, among other things. Is that not true?
Yes, it is a progressive disease.
Just because it is a progressive disease is not an excuse to curl up in a corner and wait to die. I have a very active life. My wife and I travel. We visit friends. We have a lot of friends. This whole group is sort of a part of our, not friends so much as family. And I think it's something that all of us should remember. Just because you have an illness doesn't mean you're out of the picture.
Thank you, Milt. Thank you. Joe, would you like to respond?
Yes. I have an autistic son. I don't know whether you know about autism, but it's been a very difficult illness to take care of. At the time, there were no places for him to be, to go to outside of places for the retarded, and he's not retarded. He's quite brilliant, as a matter of fact. So my husband and I decided to form an organization called the Aid to the Developmentally Disabled. That's about 15 years ago, maybe more. We now have 23 homes all over Long Island with about 192 members and a staff of 400. We are now getting money from the state. At one time we had to scrounge around to get money, but now we are recognized and audited by the state. So we're very happy. I feel that we really have accomplished something for the autistic.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Yes.
If dementia gets progressively worse, that it goes into Alzheimer, is there any medication on the market that would slow down? I know there is no cure, but that would slow down the dementia before becoming aggressively worse in Alzheimer.
There's good news and bad news about treatment. The good news is that we can talk about treatment, which is 10, 12 years ago, there was really nothing. There are now 4 drugs that are available on the market that treat the symptoms of the disease. They don't really treat the underlying cause of the disease, and they don't, as far as we know, although there's some evidence that it might actually affect the progression of the disease to some extent, although that's still kind of in
Clinical studies.
clinical studies. Thank you. So the good news is that there is treatment. The bad news is that the treatment is not all that great. It's what's available, but it's good enough that we feel that everybody who has the illness should be given an opportunity to have a trial of it.
How is dementia and Alzheimer's diagnosed?
I wanted to know, can you tell by x-ray or blood tests the diagnosis of dementia? That's just to add to it, Laura.
I'm definitely into people's stories.
Let me just define a couple of terms. Dementia is a constellation of symptoms, including the most prominent one for most people is memory loss, but it's not just memory loss. It's change in function, being able to manage the activities that people, paying the bills, making appointments, handling things like doing the laundry. Even though they probably can still do it, it probably takes a little bit longer. There are also some subtle personality changes in dementia. There are many different diseases that cause dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common. But there are many others, and I also want to, this is an opportunity to let you know that the Alzheimer's Association is not, we don't only deal with Alzheimer's, but we deal with any kind of dementing disorder. It might be Pick's disease, it might be a frontotemporal lobe dementia, it might be a Parkinson's dementia. There are many, many causes for dementia. The diagnosis is done through a process of interview and finding out what the symptoms were through blood tests. You can't see Alzheimer's on a blood test. We don't have a blood test for it yet. Through perhaps brain scans. Also, you can't see Alzheimer's on a brain scan, but they can rule out other causes of confusion or disorientation or other brain diseases that might cause confusion or disorientation and memory loss. So it's actually, the diagnosis is pretty standard nowadays, and the diagnostic accuracy is well over 90%.
I have a question about the play.
Good.
Okay, wait for Maureen to come back. I'd like to know if you could recall to the members of the group, when this idea was first presented to you to do this, can you recall any of your initial responses to the idea? Like, how did you feel? Did you immediately love it, or were you hesitant? Or?
Since that was the common thread that brought us together, it was easy to relate to it. It was presented very well to us, and then it was reinforced when we were handed the script 6 weeks later. We recognized our own words. What a wonderful feeling. We were given our parts. So it's our own making. It's a lovely feeling.
So you would do it again?
Oh, yes, my goodness.
Right.
Oh, yes.
This is a unique
We are a bunch of kosher hands.
We should try stand-up next.
No. In fact,
Adele?
I had a few choice. In my professional career, I was a school teacher. I taught high school biology for many years. And I had some choice stories to tell you people, but they said to me, be careful.
Let's keep it short.
Okay, I'll keep it short. There were some words in there that I thought I could address a crowd of adults, but better not.
Adele, did you want to respond to that? Or Felix, somebody wanted, when this was first presented, how did you react to it? Or do you have any feelings about that?
It was a double-edged kind of thing. I was coming out in a way. But I've not come out, I've gotten in. I've gotten into a group of people, with a group of people, the leaders, my fellow sufferers.
You're not suffering.
This is a very, very wonderful experience for me. And I can't wait for my Sunday social worker to come in tomorrow, and I'm going to tell him all about it. And my daughter-in-law, whatever she is, she's a director of a mental hospital, a state hospital upstate.
You made a statement at the beginning that I don't want to be lost, because I think that's the courage of everyone on this stage. I came out. This is a coming out of the closet, or that, as Anne talked about, that room that you want to hide in, that you were public in being part of this group and being a part of this play. And I think that that's not lost on this audience. how important that is. And always there's the hope that in their being open, other people will feel free to ask them questions. Like, you know, my memory's not so good, and I've been afraid to say anything. We've done this before, and that has been the reaction.
When you find that you don't remember something, do you appreciate it if your friends or your family help jog your memory? In other words, would you prefer that we just ignore the fact that it happened, or would you?
We don't have to worry about people saying to us.
Adele's raising her hand.
It's not what you say, it's the way that you say it.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Let me repeat that in case. It's not what you say, it's the way that you say it. Yes, that's right. Yes, sir. Does being in the group every day make life easier?
Oh, yes. Personally, it has been, for me, an extension of my working with a group, with a community, which I do best with as an individual. But the exercise on Tuesdays and Thursdays makes it easier for me the rest of the week because I'm able to handle my relationships with other people the rest of the week. The other day, one woman came up to me, I hope she's not in the room, and said, "What's my name?" So I looked at her and I said, "Ruth." She said, "Oh, so-and-so told me that you wouldn't remember my name." I said, "That's too bad that so-and-so told you that. That's really too bad." But I knew that I could face her with it and not walk away injured. I've been injured because I remember it ever since. That stayed with me. But I know how to handle it, and that I must attribute to the other members and the leaders of our group. The leaders of our group are extremely insightful and know just how to reach us. We are very fortunate to be part of this wonderful Samuel Field Y. I'm not asking for a discount or anything. But we are very, there's a lady back there with a baby that's been wanting to speak.
Okay.
First of all, thank you so much. My grandmother, she lived with Alzheimer's for 15 years. And she was diagnosed like 18 years ago. Way before we had all of these resources. And my family didn't talk about it. And they didn't tell her things about it. And all she would say is, "I have a mind like a sieve." And now I know that that's not the way to deal with it. And it's wonderful to see you here, and thank you.
In reading about the backgrounds of all the people here, you all seem to be highly educated, very accomplished, and I was just curious, are there statistics if Alzheimer's or the beginning of memory loss affects more intelligent people?
Alzheimer's is a very, very democratic disease. We don't really understand all the risk factors, and actually, epidemiologically and statistically, people who have lower levels of education, people who have no more than a 6th grade education, this is done based on international studies, are at greater risk for developing the disease. And the theory is that people who are educated and did some intellectual and continue to do intellectually stimulating activity, built extensive reserve pathways in their brains. And that, but the fact is, we all know people who were very intelligent and very highly educated and continued to be both physically and socially and cognitively active all their lives and still developed the disease.
The question is, have you had the experience with old friends that they don't understand, that they think you're being rude, that you stood them up? Has anybody had that experience, that their friends get angry?
I would think that would be very rare, because if you have a good friend, you've probably had him for a few years, him or her, and if they've been in touch with you all this time, they have seen this progress from a minuscule memory loss to something that's a little more so. So I don't see any problem with that.
You know, you develop techniques, if I may interrupt, how to approach it. And then, for example, I don't deny that I have memory loss. In fact, I use it as a tool. When people say to me, "What happened? You didn't show up." Oh, I forgot.
I'm just curious, when you do things that are creative and you find that, when you find that you're not being as talented in sculpting or in painting, does that tend to help you? The fact that you're doing it and you see your creations, but they're not really quite measuring up to what you used to do.
No.
Is it more of a help, or is it better to?
I don't think it has any effect.
In answer to that, an activity such as this one not only makes the audience more familiar with the ailment, but it gives us a feeling of security about the ailment. So if I'm searching for a word that used to be easier for me to find while I'm expressing myself, I understand why I'm not finding that word as readily as before, and I can deal with it. It's like my walking. I don't run anymore. So I understand why I don't run. I understand why I don't find the word. I think that is our biggest problem as people who have early memory loss, or for the entire Alzheimer's community, is for people to have more understanding of it. If there will be greater understanding, there will also be greater means of identifying the symptoms from the general community without the stigma attached to it. You can easily say, I wonder if my brain power is not the same as before. And you need not feel any shame, because we're all getting older. Naturally, we're moving on with different. My feeling is that understanding is the key to the whole thing, from those who are looking on as well as those who are living the ailment itself.
Can extreme stress for a lengthy period of time be a factor in developing dementia?
That's a good question. Can extreme stress over a prolonged period of time bring on a dementia? And my first answer is no, because the stress may be related to a depression, a loss, things that are treatable. And so anytime something like that happens, you want to learn some coping skills, you want to get some help, some therapy, maybe an antidepressant. There are things that can be done. Only after you have dealt with that and still have those symptoms that you might need to look further.
As a professional, we often refer people to a group such as yours. And I was wondering if you could tell us what it's like after we tell you about it, after you find out about the group, but before you make the phone call, that period of coming out. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
I went to CAPE. I don't know whether you know about CAPE. It's the little white house around the corner. I was bereaved at the time because I had lost my husband.
Okay.
And I was glad to find them. They referred me to the group that I'm in now, and that was a lifesaver.
Okay.
But it started with CAPE.
Okay.
And I think they're still active in that field.
Okay. Just as a diagnosis takes time to be confirmed, so it takes time for you to say, okay, maybe I do have this, maybe I should join a group, but you don't often do it immediately. It takes a little time. Sure. And again, it's not denial and it's not resistance, it's just getting used to something new.
I'm the husband of Adele Robbins, who you've heard here this morning. When she first heard about this program at the Little Neck Y, I did encourage her to join, and I thought it was a good program. But now I realize it's a fabulous program. And I'm so proud of all the members and what they did for us this morning. It's so important that the community understands a little bit more about what's going on and how people feel. And it makes the caregivers feel better too, I believe, now that we've seen you in action. And I wanted to know, my question is, after that preamble, my question is, who dreamed up, it's a wonderful idea, this To Whom I May Concern. Who dreamed up this program?
She's right there. She deserves a hand.
What can I say? Do we have enough time? I don't know. No. You know, the short answer, it came between the train and where my car was. I just was like, ah. But here's the thing about it. When you have memory loss, and this comes from my years of working with people telling me stories, when you start to have memory loss or dementia or Alzheimer's, you start to become an it. People look past you. People don't treat you like a person. And so there was something about that, to whom it may concern, to become to whom I may concern. And we actually did this in Manhattan with the Alzheimer's Association a year ago, last month. From this discussion today, from this play, this is, To Whom I May Concern, is a vehicle for people to share their experience and people to hear their experience. So I think that when we go after the next grant, we're going to have, and that's why your evaluation forms are very important, because if we can show that this helped to change attitudes, that this helped, that you learned something from this, then it will help us in saying we need to do this again and again. So I really, and I want to give Nancy the last word.
Oh, the last word. Well, I just want to say that with all the discussion of the scientific side of things, I think you will get the feeling that we have an awful lot of fun. In fact, we will be laughing, and Jamie Cooperman from the other room comes and said, "What are you laughing about? I want to be in on this." And I think that's the most important part, and the love and friendship that we all have. And I think when people are seen as people and not an illness, they respond like this, with lots of help from these people, of course.
Nancy knows that when I'm around, she never has the last word. I am the wife of Milt, and I've done lots of reading. My mother had Alzheimer's. I deal with Milt every single day, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot by listening to the play and watching all these people. I learned mostly about how they feel in relation to other people, and really how they feel about themselves. And I want to thank you, Maureen, Laura, Nancy, Alyssa. It was a great experience.
So on that note, we have some refreshments in the back here, and we want you all to take a few minutes to fill out that second page of your evaluation form. If you need a pen, if you need a form, talk to us. Thank you for coming.
I've been getting messages all along. The check's in the mail. I never get the check. For me.
I'll let you take one. It's free. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got the